Strategy games have been around as long as PC gaming has been in existence and have long been one of the most popular gaming genres.
Lately, though, there seems to be a growing popularity in war games, with World War II being the focal point for a lot of them. The latest in this wave of games is Talonsoft's newest release, Battleground Ardennes.
This is a Windows-based game that runs under Windows 3.1 or Win95. This is bound to be good news to some folks and bad news to others, depending on whether your relationship with Windows is spit and vinegar or sugar and spice.
Battleground Ardennes is a turn-based hex-style strategy game centered around the World War II's Battle of the Bulge.
This was the time towards the end of the war when the Allies had established a presence in France and Germany decided to launch an all-out offensive to drive them out.
The offensive caught the Allies off guard and drove their forces back, making a bulge in the center of the battle lines, thus the name the Battle of the Bulge.
The battles that took place during this time were fierce and bloody, becoming the stuff of legends and movies, with the final result being the defeat of the Germans, heralding the end of the Third Reich at the expense of many lives.
Battleground Ardennes really comes through with Talonsoft's trademark battle view system.
When you look at the game from the normal viewpoint, it looks like any other strategy game with a bird's eye view of the battlefield and two-dimensional terrain.
But when you zoom in, you get the 3D map, which is very impressive. No other game I've played delivers a sense of true three-dimensional terrain like this one does.
It may take some players a little time to get used to, but this combat system really delivers more of a feel of the battlefield itself than any game since Perfect General 2. The gameplay is just like you'd expect from a hex-based game, not quite as sophisticated as some other releases, but a little more in-depth than something like Panzer General.
The main wargaming rules are included, such as terrain and combat modifiers, but some of the more advanced features found in other games like fatigue, lines of supply, leadership factors, or zones of control were left out.
Gameplay is carried out through a series of turns. Each turn is broken down into phases of movement, preparation fire, offensive and defensive fire, and assaults. It's a very basic game structure that doesn't try to break any new ground, but provides an easy-to-use, tried-and-true system.
The only trouble is that it can take forever to get anything done in combat. I mean, sometimes you can just wail on the bad guys with no real effect. In fact, you'll soon come to despise that ever-present no effect message.
I know what you mean. I'm all for realism and everything, but doggone it, sometimes the game can get bogged down when there's just no units being eliminated.
In games like Panzer General, units are eliminated at a pretty good pace, which means cities and other terrain can be taken and retaken with regularity. Push and pull, ebb and flow, all that good stuff.
But the action in Battleground Ardennes can tend to drag. The phases of the game represent such a small amount of time, the rate that units are destroyed may be very representative of the way it actually happened, but if it gets boring, who's going to care?
All of the units' movements and combat are based on a relatively small group of values. There are attack strengths and ranges for both hard and soft targets, defensive strengths, movement ranges, morale, assault strengths, and victory point values.
Although there aren't the sheer number of values and modifiers found in seriously hardcore war games, the small number of things to worry about makes for a fun game that's easy to play and understand, but don't be fooled by the box.
The box says that Battleground Ardennes offers unparalleled realism, quote unquote, and that would lead one to think that this is a very in-depth simulation of World War II combat. But while it does give a good feel for combat with the units of the time, it by no means offers realism that is unmatched by other games.
But it's still fun.
There's only so much you can do in a game that's as focused as one battle like Battleground Ardennes is. So the designers have added the friend of all true gamers everywhere, the Scenario Editor.
With the Scenario Editor, you have full control over the placement of units, fortresses, and objectives on the map.
You can also mess around with the intangibles of a scenario like victory points, off-map artillery, and reinforcements. You can also change the pre-existing scenarios as well as make your own.
But again, don't assume anything when you're reading the back of the box, which says a full-featured scenario editor is included. While that may be true technically, some folks may assume you can change the battlefield itself.
Nope, you have 3 maps to choose from, all prefabricated. And the terrain the maps come with is the terrain you're stuck with. You can't change the tiles or anything. If an in-depth simulation of World War II combat is what you're after, Battleground Ardennes is not the game for you.
But if you want a decent strategy war game that's centered around World War II combat, Battleground Ardennes isn't a bad game.
It helps to have a machine with 16 megs of RAM. See, the entire map is loaded into memory, which means using virtual memory on 4 and 8 meg systems, so sometimes moving around the map can be a little sluggish.
But even with 8 megs, it's not bad. The 3D Battleground is a really neat environment to play in, and it really gives that sense of terrain that's missing from lots of other games.
While it may not be the most exciting or most precise strategy game ever to be released, it's still fun. And like it says on the box, if it's not fun, who cares?